So the preferences and principles for using our personality type or psychological type also are going to enhance our relationships. And this is part of the fundamental values that are within the MBTI instrument. This is one of the reasons that's created, is to increase and enhance relationships. So we can recognition or develop a recognition and respect for differences between people, and we can also appreciate the value that these differences are going to bring between each other and to the relationship. Now, let's look at how we can have intimate relationships and use the MBTI type. So the best use for type knowledge is really for understanding and appreciating the different gifts between your partner and yourself. And this relationship can be built upon recognizing that you're really different and that you have an actual right to remain different. And you also really can have a willingness to concentrate on the values and the virtues of each other's types rather than the weaknesses. So really concentrating on those strengths and those positive aspects. Remember again that there are no good and bad combinations of types in intimate relationships, but each particular combination is going to have very unique joys and also unique problems. So if you have a similar preference with your spouse, you're going to communicate easily, understand each other's perspective, and even share common values. Let me give you an example. I'm an INTJ, my husband's an ENTJ, and we do very well when it comes to decision making and gathering information, etc. Here's where our difference comes. Our difference comes when it comes to a social engagement, right? Because he's extroverted, I'm introverted. He's very excited to see a very full calendar and to be running around all the time. I am not. I would prefer to have a little more quiet. I want to end my day with reading, pondering, just silence. So that's where those differences and the preferences, the similarities come into impact. So we want to really look and see how the type impacts our relationships. Looking at these differences, of course, I already used the example of extrovert versus introvert, but it also shows that we can have some blind spots. So you feel pushed, you're missing out on things. A resentment can result because you aren't really acknowledging that you have differences and admiring those differences. And also, you need to really see that the other is frequently acting in a non-preferred or less comfortable way. And what happens is that sometimes you have trouble understanding each other, you disagree, you argue, your priorities are unaligned, and you may even find that interests are leading in different directions. However, you can experience the continuing joy and vitality of differences by finding and developing your own non-preferred areas. So let's go back to my example of the extrovert and the introvert. With my husband, who's an extrovert, me being an introvert, we came to a conclusion that if we have 5 days in the week, we go weekdays and weeknights. So 4 days for the weekdays, Monday through Thursday. And we say during those times, 2 of the 4 days, we stay home. So that way I get to rejuvenate and he gets to rejuvenate. When it comes to the weekend, we have 3 nights, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Again, we say 2. 2 of the 3 we go out. 1 we stay home. Now, the reason that we have increased a little bit more on the weekend is because Saturdays and Sundays leave a little more flexibility for me to have some downtime. But that also gives him the opportunity to have the uptime so that he can get energized as well. So you want to be able to and respect your partner's point of view as well as moving forward and enjoying the differences that each of you have. All right. Also, did you know that the MBTI can increase and help develop your relationship with your children? This is really important. It applies. And often in trying to meet our children's needs, we assume that what works best for them is going to work best for us. And that's really not true. Sometimes a lack of validation or acceptance of their preference to a child leads to low self-esteem, defiance, or even creates strain on the relationship. So what we want to see is how understanding the MBTI preferences and personality is going to aid us in raising children that are going to have greater self-esteem and be able to approach the world and accept themselves for who they are. So I want to give you an example real quick. My husband and I have 6 children. Of our 6 children, we have 3 introverts and we have 3 extroverts. And we can tell when the extroverts are coming. The two oldest are extroverts and the youngest. Now, I have found that dealing with and handling my three middle ones, right, the introverts, is easier for me because I'm not constantly having to run around and deal with outgoing and things. The oldest one did sports and cheerleading. The second one, again, sports and volunteered for everything in scouts. The youngest has asthma and cannot do sports. She chose to do everything she could for academia and band, and she competes, and she's super, super excited about life. All the time, always want to go, these three. Now, at any point that you look at a child and you say you're wrong because you're not extroverted, all of a sudden you have squished them, and they are no longer going to have great self-esteem. So we want to be able to express that and help that. Also, by understanding their personality type, we're able to help them to realize and understand that although they may have that perceiving method of dealing with the outer world, that may not always work in a school situation, because a school situation has schedules, deadlines, and assignments that are due, right? What happens when you have a child that is more spontaneous and wants a flexible lifestyle? We need to be able to work with these children and to find a way for them to be able to fit into this niche. And that is one of the greatest important pieces that comes to the MBTI type and relationships with our children.